Hi everybody. So I'm going to draw a realistic eye today and I'm going to describe what I'm doing so you can follow and learn from me. First I'm going to show what I'm using. I'm using a Derwent graphite pencil. It's an HP pencil. The clarity may be a little bit off, but I'm using also using a variety of other pencils like 2B, 4B, 8B. But this is what is more important, the HP. Next, I'm using this paper by Strathmore. It's a very good company brand for papers, stone gray paper, and it's pretty good. I'm choosing a gray one. I'll explain that later. So I'm also using this Derwent electric eraser. It's pretty nice for clean erasing. And this is the blender that I'm using. Blender is a very important tool when it comes to graphite pencil drawings. So I'm starting with the eye. So I'm going to, so like I initially showed you, I'm drawing the eye. First, I'm drawing just the generic shape of the eye. If you see, the eye has a dome shape on the top, and the curvature on the bottom is slightly less. So that's what we're going to trace. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can draw more than one line. Next, I'm drawing the eyeball. So it doesn't have to be a perfect circle in the first go. Uh, Later you can try and correct it. Also, I'm closing on the inner corner of the eye. The thing is, I'm not putting too much pressure with my pencil. So now I'm going to draw the internal structures of the eyeball. It has a lot of lines and the iris, the darkness of the iris, and the lines are outside. And if you see the waterline, it is not just one single line, it has two lines. And the eyelashes are not in a single row, it has on multiple rows. You look deeper both on the upper corner and the lower upper and lower lids. The eyelashes not are not arranged in a straight line. It's bunched together in different orders, like one below the other. So that's what I'm going to capture. So I'm drawing the iris now, and I'm putting those boxes because they are the reflection on the eyeball. So it's not a perfect circle in the inside. So I'm saving that place for later. So I'm going to draw those lines from the iris to the outer corner of the balls. You see the outer corner, they are much darker, but the internal structure of the eyeball, that they are much more lighter. I think my goal is not to capture the exact copy of the picture that I showed. It's just a reference image, but we are going to achieve an eye as realistic as possible. It's going to be a cross between realistic and hyper realistic. So when you see it from the outside, it's going to look like it has life. So if you just using 2B to do some extra shading. If you see initially, I shaded very lightly. I didn't put too much pressure because if you create indentation on the paper, it'll be very hard to remove it. It's not possible to remove it at all. So it's better to always put very light pressure. That's why we are going to, if you want to achieve a darker color of the graphite pencil, you should have to use a pencil with higher grade of darkness. Like 2B is much darker than HB, and 8B is super dark. There are 14B even available. So and if you just see, I'm using 8B now. I'm shading it very mildly, but still I'm achieving that real dark color. So I'm just uh, drawing those internal structures. Might look very shabby right now, but as we progress, it's going to look a lot better. It's a process. You have to trust the process. using the eraser whenever required. You don't, sometimes you can draw in a place and erase on top to achieve the look. So that's what I'm using it for. You can even use a kneaded eraser or a normal eraser or even Tombow. It's pretty good. So yeah, you can try anything. One more thing that is to be noted in any realistic drawings, there are no sharp lines. So when we are drawing, the main purpose of using a blender is to smooth out those sharp lines. If you see any realistic picture, most of the lines in realistic anything is a lot smoother. That's how we achieve realism. See, I'm using the blender here to blend out the lines and I don't know, to achieve that shaded look. I'm leaving the reflection part because I have something special waiting for that, but I'm just blending everything else inside the eyeball. It's not all black. That's the main thing. Like I said, I'm blending out the outside of the eyeball. I'm using a darker color to add more depth to the eye. In some cases, to achieve realism, I don't even use the actual pencil. I just use the blender to, add more depth and shading because the blender has more, graphite in it. And if I use a pencil, that'll ruin the effect. You see the outside of the eye, it's a lot more blended, right? It's more realistic. So as we go, as we progress in this drawing, you will see what I'm talking about. I think my pencil broke. I'm sharpening it. I'm removing some of the graphite particles to get that reflection inside the eyeball. So later I'll coat them with white charcoal pencil. I'm adding more detail because the devil is in the detail. If you add more detail, that's how you get the realism. That's how you capture the realism. When you are drawing something, you're looking at a reference picture, you don't draw everything at once. You just look at the picture and you see more, like more detail. You go down to the basic level and then you try to emulate that in the picture you're trying to draw. That's how you achieve hyper realistic or realistic images. It never has to be the exact same thing, but it boggles people's minds when you actually achieve the realism, right? So, like if I can draw this, anybody can. Very simple. The main important thing to focus when it comes to realistic drawing is to capture the essence of the actual picture that you're trying to copy or draw. You just have to note all the details one by one, add more depth. So that's how you get that realism. So I'm starting to add more detail to the outside of the eyelid, uh, basically outside of the waterline. So the waterline is not just one single line, it's actually, you know, two lines and some details in between. Just using the blender to add more shade and depth to the inside of the eyes. So this is what I mentioned before. I just use the blending stump just to add more, shade and blended effect. This is actually something I really love doing because it's this is what actually brings the life to the eye. Try to sharpen the eraser. I don't have the Tombow, that thin eraser yet. I've ordered it. I'm waiting for it to arrive. So until then, I'm going to use my Derwent eraser for fine detailing. So in the picture, there were highlights or reflection in the waterline. So that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I'm erasing after the shading. So this is the outer corner, and the thing is, there are reflection of the lashes inside the iris or the eyeball. So that's pretty. That has to bring more realism to the eye. The more depth I add, the more realistic it's starting to appear. So here I'm not just drawing inside the eye, I'm also covering whatever is the skin and the folds outside of the eye so that it's it gives that look of the eye. If you notice, I just use the electric eraser to erase the highlights. Now the upper lid fold, I will add more depth to it. I will use a much darker pencil later, but right now I'm just using the HB to trace it. So I'm using the blender to pick up the graphite particles on the upper lid fold and use that to blend it, so we will get that realistic effect. I'm using the word realistic too often, but come on, it's in the title. I'm adding the eyelashes now. So if you notice, the eyelashes are not in a straight line. They are actually one on top of the other. They are in multiple rows. So that's why it's reality is not often there. It's not in too much order. So that's why we are not doing it in proper order, which is it's just so random. But also there is a rhythm to it. If I add two lashes on the top, I add two on the bottom and one in a random place. So that's how it goes. I'm not copying the lash position exactly as it is in the reference image because that'll take too much time, and here I'm just trying to recreate the realistic eye. So I don't have to copy everything, every single line, unless I really have to. Here I'm not doing it. I'll come back to add more depth to it. So now I'm going with the lower lash line. You know, so for some people, even for me initially, I was not able to draw a proper lash because it can sometimes go wrong. So that's why it's better to practice in a rough sheet beforehand. Those uh, quick strokes of the eyelash, that would be very helpful before drawing on the actual eye. Also drawing the veins inside, adding more depth to the eye now. The details are increasing more and more. I'm not saying it's easy, but once you get the grasp of how realism works, it should be fairly easy for anybody. I'm adding more blood vessels inside the eyes. If I were to use color, it would be red. So yeah, this is where the white charcoal pencil comes in. I love the charcoal pencil, especially the white charcoal pencil, because when I add this on the reflection part, it looks super bright. It's popping. That's why I'm using the gray sheet. Any artist would use a colored background to draw, because if you see painters, they first paint in a darker coat and then they'll start painting. That's because they want to see the difference in the lighter shades. When we are in school, we hardly ever use the white pencils, right, in the color box. So because we've always been using white sheets, so that's why a colored background helps with highlights. It makes it more realistic and makes it pop. Also blending the white shades. I don't want it to be too bright. More the outside of eyes. Add some more blood vessels. So far, if you've liked my video, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Help me grow, because I've started this new thing, and it would really help me in motivating me to do more of these. So now I'm adding a little more skin texture by using the eraser. First I blended it and then used the eraser to add more texture to the skin. You'll keep adding more depth until I'm satisfied. You can keep going until it gets super hyper realistic. But for hyper realism, I should have started it a lot bigger, because hyper realism, it needs a lot of details. That's the essence of hyper realism. So we are settling for realism here. So we are almost done here. I'm going to add a little more depth to the lashes. I'm going to make them thicker so they pop. So this is going to be the final touch. Once we're done with this, we're done with the realistic drawing of the eye. It took me about 1 hour, so I spread up most of the video. I hope it takes you the same time or longer. Whatever it is, just sit and start practicing. You will get there, or even better. You can get better than me, for sure. So it's almost done. And it's done and done. If you like my video, please like, comment and subscribe and support my channel. Thanks for watching.